Welcome in, Sunday Night Roundtable, brought to you by BroadwaySportsMedia.com. This is the Depression edition because, unfortunately, this is going to be our last Sunday Night Roundtable because the Titans offense decided to stand in the bed, drop their pants to their ankles, and spray it from pillows to foot. Welcome in. What a disappointing loss. Titans fall to the Ravens 20-13. The away team continues to dominate this series, and it is very depressing. I'm just going to start with my thoughts and condolences to all of you all who had to watch that disappointing performance, which to me, for some reason, started to come apart when Adoree Jackson misses that sack on Lamar, and Lamar completes a great pass. Don't get me wrong, a great pass, but that was indicative of plays that the defense has given up on third down all year, and it just, the whole dynamic shifted. Now, the defense was not the complete cause of the loss here. They were bad in spots they needed to be good, but ultimately this one falls on the Titans offense, and they went from looking kind of effective to just turning anemic. And that's where I'm going to start. Boren, take us away. What am I wrong on? What am I right on? Should I be drinking right now?
Yes.
Yeah, you should be drinking, and solidarity if you are not. I did downgrade to the 7% IPA, not the 9% as normal, but I would say that this game actually, surprisingly, I feel less bad about, because you come in with the ghosts of Christmas past with the 2000 loss and the 2008 loss, and look, the Titans lost to a better team today, and that's all you can really say, is that it was absolutely just team. And unfortunately for the Titans, you can't look back. Yes, if you want to nitpick, and I'm sure we will get into whether or not it was pass interference on Peters there towards the end. I don't necessarily think it was, but regardless, look, you boil it down. Defense gave up 20 points. The Titans offense only scored 13. If you look at that, Titans offense did not come to play today. That's all you can say.
Yeah, they didn't. It's frustrating too, because Derrick Henry could never get going, and it's easy to say, well, the run game was just bad or the blocking was bad, but the Ravens sold out to stop the run, and it was definitely on the edges. They were winning the one-on-one battles. Swain probably had, I have to go back and look at it, but I feel as though Swain had his worst game as a Titan on blocking on the edge. Judon ate his lunch all day. It wasn't just on the plays they were made. Judon was able to close down gaps and leave little exit gaps for Henry were not there anymore. So Henry, and plus, it's the same I've been seeing wasn't quite for me all day. Like I thought there was a couple times he could have broken it outside, could have gotten some more, and he would cut inside to other things. So just things weren't there. They weren't getting the movement that you had been seeing out of this offensive line. So that's frustrating. And Art Smith, I don't think it was terrible. You can say this was like his worst game called, but it definitely wasn't. And the balance wasn't as balanced, I would say, as I would have liked to have seen. So yeah, it was just a frustrating day, especially when the defense played, honestly, above their head. I know there were some plays given up, but they played above their pay grade today for sure.
I'm going to take this question here from the comments, from the chat. Someone explained throwing on second and third, then not going for it. We're talking about the Titans get the ball back down 17-13. They run the ball with Henry. It's like a 1-yard gain. A.J. Brown picks up a nice 2nd and 10 catch and run, breaks a tackle in the backfield. Henry gets the ball in the next play. His best run of the day on 1st and 10. It's an 8-yard run, sets up 2nd and 2 on the Baltimore 40-yard line. From there, after Henry has his best run of the day, 2nd and 2, you got to go down and score on this possession. It's the fourth quarter, like 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter or so. They throw a deep shot to A.J. Brown that doesn't even have a chance. It sails over his head out of bounds. A lot of contact on the route, but that's how that was going all day, which is, by the way, why I don't think they called it on the Khalif Raymond play, but that's not for this moment. And then on the next play, it's 3rd and 2, and they throw it to Jonnu Smith on the sideline, right at the marker. Deshaun Elliott, Hookem, comes in and makes the breakup. He should have caught the ball. It should have been a first down. But then the Titans decide to not go for it on 4th and 2 from the across midfield Baltimore's 40-yard line, down by 4 with 10 minutes left in the game. Number one, I don't mind the 2nd and 2 shot. I would have preferred you run Henry there. I mean, they had, how many times this game have we seen Henry get a 4-yard run and then a 2-yard run or whatever? Like, they were doing 1st and 2nd down to Henry a lot. We've seen it throughout this season when it's 2nd and short and Henry gets the ball again. And he takes it for 6 or 8 yards and it keeps things moving. Today they elected, after his best run of the day, I don't get it, to take him off the field. And then even if you want to throw it on 2nd and 2, run it on 3rd and 2, make it 4th and 1 or shorter, and go for it again, just like they finally had to do when they got the ball back down 20-13, and you're at your own 30-yard line now. You have to do that. You do that from your own 30-yard line, but you wouldn't do it from the Baltimore 40. You pumped the ball 25 yards, which the Ravens picked up in 2 plays after that. It's just, that was by far, I mean, I agree the Adoree Jackson play was a game changer that you mentioned, Lebowski. I think Lamar running to the end zone in the first half was a lot like Mahomes running to the end zone at the end of the first half in the AFC Championship game, in the sense that it kind of broke their spirit. But that fourth down, I mean, it was all moot if that 4th down and they convert there.
Right here, real quick, that's the thing. If you're going to equate the Lamar Jackson run to the Mahomes run, if that had the same impact on this team, then I have one thing I want to bring up, and that is this is a mentally weak team. If you cannot recover from a play in the first half, and I get they are impactful plays, but if you can't recover from that, this team is not winning a Super Bowl. I'm sorry. There is a fundamental issue with the team in and of itself if you can't recover from a play in the first half. You're not talking about as time expires or putting it away with 2 minutes to go in the game. You're talking about that play tied the game. So 0-0, and you were that mentally weak going into the second half, given the Ravens even get the ball, that you can't recover from that. If that play had that sort of impact to the point that you can't recover from it, then guess what? It's a moot point at this point because you're not winning anyways.
So I'll say this to piggyback there on what Jonathan's saying, and I agree wholeheartedly. And it wasn't the same kind of feeling from the Chiefs game either, because the defense didn't give up. In fact, I thought they played better in the second half at times. I mean, yes, there were some plays given up because Lamar Jackson did make some plays, but it wasn't like they just folded. So it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same kind of effort there. And to go back to what Justin was saying about why don't you go for it in Baltimore 40, I agree that I was calling for them to go for it and to try to get that first down. So I agree, but there's a little difference between going from your 40 or from their 30 given the game time. When they went for it on the 30, they had to. You can't get the ball back, especially then. At least with 10 minutes left, you know you're going to get the ball back in some capacity. But with this defense, I agree they should have gone for it. They should have been aggressive the whole game. And there's been a lot of comments here in the chat, and it's fine. Everyone's emotional after the game. The season's over. I have full expect emotions. I welcome it. We can be frustrated. You can be frustrated. It's fine. There's no reason to fire Vrabel. There's no reason. And if Arthur Smith doesn't get a head coaching job, which he probably will, I will take him back as offensive coordinator, because on the whole, he was good all season. It wasn't like I don't think he called a horrible game, because here's the thing. It was bad. It wasn't good. And I will agree, horrible, because he did try some things. He did take some shots, but this offense, it is a lot easier to call and to get into the flow of the game when the Derrick Henry runs are not getting stopped for 2 and 3 yards, when they're going for 4, 5, 6, and 8. He didn't really break a chunk until later on. So it's definitely there. Now, you're pointing at something there, JG. I can't see. Hold on. We absolutely need Lawan, the talent. But this was a game where that's gone. So we're just saying the difference in Lawan. Yeah, but you knew you were going to have Lawan all season. I don't think Questenberry and then Cirillo before that played awful this season. But yes, Lawan being back would be fine. This was more the Ravens said that Derrick Henry wasn't going to beat him, and it was very, very evident from the start. At that point in time, you can easily say you would like to have seen Art Smith called air raid and go deep. Sure, that's the counter, but at the same time, like my coach of the coaches corner called out, if you can't pass it on the Ravens at too high, can't run it on the Ravens when they're going too high like they did some of this game, good luck. And that's kind of what happened through chunks of this game.
Well, and that's the thing. I said it at halftime when we're talking about when the Ravens came out, they had 2 high safeties. When you have 2 high safeties, you look back to the playoff game last year when they played against the Patriots. The Patriots came out and they went too high from the get-go, and they said, we're not going to give you the big play, we're going to take our chances. Well, they ended up losing that game, the Patriots did, because Derrick Henry was still able to run the ball. With the Ravens here, the Calais Campbell, the Brandon Williams, those guys came up, took care of business, and even with too high, so taking away the big play. Too. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Look, I'll give
those guys were pissed off because they had been run over by Henry multiple times. They heard all week about how Henry had run them over the last times they played. And I think that you're 100% right. Those guys up front, just bullied the Titans offensive line all day and didn't give Henry the creases outside of a couple of runs that he's had this season. I know Henry in the playoffs last year ran through those guys at the line of scrimmage to break off big plays, but they remember that. Matthew Judon got run through right in the hole at the line of scrimmage. And you could see the fire when they made a tackle for loss, how important it was to that defense. So I don't know what the counter there is, but I do think that Vrabel and Arthur Smith were, and I haven't said this very many times, a couple of times only, they were vastly outcoached today.
I'll say a couple of things here real quick. Someone asked, anyone know what happened to Corey Davis? No, our own John Glennon tweeted out just a couple of minutes ago. Vrabel's comment was, Davis obviously wasn't able to go at the end. It's very typical Vrabel. He's not going to give up any details. We'll probably find some things that leak out. I'm not going to jump on the man right now. He's had a lot of personal things came up this year. He could have had an injury at the beginning of the year. I'm going to leave the man alone for now. I have no idea why Corey Davis couldn't finish. But I said this week on Football and Other F Words, and I didn't want to sound like I was being some naysayer or being negative, but I said that if the Titans couldn't get Henry going and the way our defense has been playing, Titans fans need to get themselves mentally prepared for a one and done. And that's unfortunately exactly what happened. Henry being put out of this game was a very big factor, definitely threw the balance and the flow of the offense off. I made the comment that the Adoree Jackson play seemed to be the turning point. I don't want to put this on Adoree Jackson, although I do have specific problems with Adoree Jackson. Namely, he will not try to look for the fucking football.
Yeah,
that drives me up the wall, and I want to come back to that in just a moment. But I'm not sitting here trying to say I told you so, but this is exactly why I was warning fans to be prepared for a one and done. When you combine Henry not being involved in the defense, unfortunately giving up the plays that they had been giving up all year, that's exactly what happened. We talked last week about you got to force Lamar to do it with his legs and make him pass, but the Titans gave up both. They allowed him to pass the ball and do it with his legs. All of that shit adds up. And I get it. Look, it irritated me that Lamar ran off the field. Didn't want to congratulate people. But you know what? This is the rivalry that Titans fans have wanted to hype up. So good for them. 2, you don't think they enjoyed taking 15 yards for stomping on that logo? They would have taken 30 in that situation. Absolutely enjoyed it. And you would have felt the same way if it was your team doing it. So try to temper your expectations. I've kind of rambled all over the place there, but I do want to go back to something I brought up specifically. Adoree Jackson drives me up the wall, will not turn around and look for the fucking ball.
Go ahead, JB.
Look, man, Adoree, I will knock him, especially on the missed tackle where Marquise Brown was running up the sideline. That was absolutely a miss on Adoree. He did have the big play, but ultimately, because Marquise Brown turns inside on a ball that he should have turned to an outside shoulder throw, and it makes it look worse on Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson, that's a situation where you're not in phase. When we talk about in phase, you're talking about you got to be able to have that hand on the hip. Marquise Brown is a freak athlete. Let me take that back. He's not a freak athlete. He's a really fast athlete. He's not big and fast. Those are the ones that are really a problem. But look, Adoree's running with him. He is not in phase on that, so he's looking for that moment where he can attack those hands when they go up to catch the ball. Hit my mic there. Had a moment. I was not in phase with my mic. And so it's a problem for Adoree that yes, with the athleticism. Do I think he's 100%? Absolutely not. But Adoree still has to have that ability to make those deep plays. I don't think he was that bad in this game. He missed Marquise Brown on that one play that he got to break a play. Was he an impact player? No. Was he a terrible player? I don't think so. And ultimately, it's hard for me to say in 2021. 2021, it's 2021. In 2021, if you're giving up 20 points in the NFL, that's winning football. I'm sorry, that is.
Yeah, I agree. This game's not on the defense, but that said, there were still a lot of plays where it felt like the defense, where it felt like Lamar was throwing to wide open receivers. Like they didn't make it that difficult.
It's all season.
And it's been the thing all season. The flats are wide open and the people are late to get there.
I will cut you off on this one because that's what I'm saying. They are giving that up. They're willing to give it because that's what you have to give and take on some things. Lamar Jackson, with his running ability, with them looking for the big play from people biting up on the run, you have to give up something. You can't play everything perfectly. You can't. If you have Hall of Famers at all 11 positions, yes, you can do that. You can say every single player, if they gain a yard, is a problem. The problem here is you have to give up something. And they took away the big play for the most part. And in the passing game, they did not. Mark Andrews, if Mark Andrews is not eating you alive, then that's a pretty good game if you're playing defense against the Ravens. And they took Mark Andrews away. It's just like last year when they played the Chiefs. You took Travis Kelce away. They did, and that is the element that makes that offense go. They took Travis Kelce away, and they were still able to win. That's a better team. And frankly, the Ravens, the way they are playing football right now, are a better team. Sorry.
They are. And I think that what's interesting to me is that we talked about this a lot last week. We said you can't have the bad plays, the negative plays, the drops, whatever. And this team really did compete today. These were two very good teams playing high-level football, going at it with each other. The Ravens had their mishap very early on when Lamar threw a very errant downfield ball that was basically a punt, so it didn't hurt them too much. The Titans, on the other hand, had their game-breaking play that they couldn't overcome very late, and that was the Khalif Raymond play, which we probably should talk about now. I mean, they had Corey Davis couldn't haul in a contested third down early. Jonnu Smith couldn't haul in a contested third down on fourth down. Those are the types of plays we said you got to make those plays to win this game, to win in the playoffs. And the one you really can't overcome is Khalif Raymond falling down on a route, whether or not he was hit by Peters, because that was a good ball. And I know A.J. Brown was wide open on the other side of the field, and we can critique Ryan Tannehill for missing him, but the read that he chose was there. Raymond had the leverage downfield and was body in between him and Peters. That should have been a big gain that Raymond would have taken a hit on. It should have been a 20-yard gain. And instead, it's the game-losing turnover.
Yeah, well, and I'd mentioned last week that, one of the keys to the Titans winning this game is that to make up for the deficiencies on defense, the Titans offense was basically going to have to play damn near perfect. Now, I don't want to take away from the defense. They just held this Ravens team to 20 points, right? So ironically, the defense stepped up when they needed to step up, but the offense did not. And you got drop passes. Derrick Henry couldn't get it going. That's not going to get it done. This was just the better team won the football game. It didn't come down to any kind of crazy contested calls. Ironically, the Ravens were at the other end of some calls that were pretty questionable. But this really didn't come down to a bunch of questionable calls. The better team won, and the Titans offense just did not show up when I really thought it was the defense that was going to get absolutely blown out, which was not the case. It was a low-scoring, hard-fought game, and the Ravens got the win.
Kudos to Baltimore for coming in with a defensive game plan that they did, and they stuck to it, and they really put the pressure on the Titans offense. And that's where, if you want to say anything was bad, that there was not enough adjustments off of that, which I will 100% agree with. And there wasn't enough ability to try to attack where they were giving you or they're giving up their leverage, because clearly it wasn't inside, and they kept trying to do that. I think I saw maybe one or two stretches, and those on, and they didn't work. So it's just kind of a frustrating day, especially when the defense played, like I said earlier in this whatever we're on live show, that the defense played above their pay grade today, and the offense could not get it done. And I saw some comments while we playing the defense. Yeah, that's fair. The offense was definitely the worst one, but we got to talk about the whole game and what we thought and what we saw, because it all went in together. But yeah, the offense was definitely disappointing and didn't get the job done. And that's frustrating when you have probably one of the most potent, if not the most potent offense the Titans have ever had. And so it's just, it is frustrating. They could only muster 13 points today, but credit to the Baltimore defense. They've got a lot of great players over there that came to play today, and they were clearly pissed off, like JG or somebody said earlier, and they wanted this a little more, it seemed. And the Titans, I know they wanted it too, but it's just sometimes this happens in the NFL. It sucks when it happens to your team.
Hey, real quick, I just want to touch on the comment from Periscope, Johnathan D. Titans made no adjustments. Look, I tend to disagree with that comment. The Titans did make an adjustment. The problem is that the Ravens anticipated the adjustment. The Titans came out in that second half, and they said, look, these Ravens are keying on that run game. Well, the Ravens then adjusted to a too high safety look. They went to the Patriots of last year, and they went and said, we're going to take away that deep game. So the Titans went in and said, hey, they're keying on the run game. We're going to go to that deep passing game. Look,
They mixed it up. There was still some one high safety throughout.
There was a little bit, but in that opening drive, which is going to be, if you're going to have your scripted portion, which is what you're going to have at the beginning of that second half, they definitely came out and went too high safety. The Titans came out and they want to take a big play at the beginning, thinking the Titans were going to come out and establish the run there at the beginning, and they didn't. Well, they came out and they said they wanted to take that big play. The Ravens anticipated it. In the chess game that you play in football. Look, the Ravens anticipated and played it perfectly.
And I will say about the defense, they definitely did. They did get one stop in the fourth when they pinned him at the 7-yard line. That was a pretty clutch one. But then they couldn't from there, and that's why we're talking about the defense, because it was on the offense ultimately. But that is something that they couldn't do. And against the Patriots, against those two high safety looks, they were able to run successfully, even if they didn't rip off big runs, because the offensive line was blowing people off the ball. I remember Taylor Lewan barreling through somebody. I put it in my Henry highlight video. They were able to move the ball against two high safety looks because the offensive line was blocking well. And today, those creases weren't there even in those two high looks.
So there's a comment over here that says, what do y'all think about the Titans stepping on the Ravens logo last year? Look, I'll say this. I
want to talk about this because this is a huge misconception. The Titans never went out to disrespect anybody's logo. The Titans, as a team, gather at midfield and do a little prayer, team, whatever, breakdown on the logo at midfield before every single game that they play in every single stadium. It has nothing to do with the Ravens logo or the Titans logo or anybody's logo. I know the Ravens felt disrespected by it, and I think they are justified in feeling disrespected by it, but I think it's still important to point out that the Titans are not going around trying to stomp on people's logos the way that Kevin Byard absorbed the star in Dallas a couple of years ago.
Yeah, the problem with that is if you're gonna do that, that's me saying I always burn down my neighbor's house. That it was nothing against you. I just always go over there and pour kerosene and then set it on fire. So that's really not a me issue. That's a you issue. There's no disrespect. I disagree with that statement.
I think if you get pissed about logos in general, your baby back soft.
I mean, that's the thing. Look, there's kind of two sides to this. If you're going to be getting upset about logos and terrible towels and all this stuff, the only people who should take offense to that is the players. And that's the kind of stuff that builds rivalries. You win within reason, of course. You win the ability to go out there. Again, I'll say this again. You don't think the Ravens enjoyed taking a 15-yard penalty for stomping on that logo? Do you think Harbaugh is going to address that in the locker room? No, guys, we need to watch ourselves going. Fuck that. If you're going to take that opportunity, you're going to take the yardage every time. It's like earlier in the year, actually not earlier, just a few games ago, Juju Smith was coming out and doing the dancing on the logo. Does it piss people off? Absolutely. Did he stop doing it when he got his ass cracked and fumbled the ball? Yes. So there's consequences to it, but at the end of the day, you can't let that stuff get to you. The first comment I made after the game is that Lamar was a punk for running the locker room without congratulating anybody. But you know what? Now that I've had time to digest it, good for him. It's a rivalry. They're back in the day.
Did they shake hands afterwards?
He came out and shook his own teammates' hands as they were coming in the tunnel, unless he did it after
in the tunnel
interview.
with 25 seconds left on the clock. After his final knee, he was already down the tunnel.
You know what? Look, if you go back and watch basketball games, football games from the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of times players did not congratulate each other. This is not just a big happy-go-lucky shit fest. So don't count on it happening. It's a rivalry. The better team won. Sorry.
I agree. Ryan.
Yeah, this builds for a good matchup for the next time too, as far as the rivalry. Yeah.
Ryan, I wanted you to talk about Khalif Raymond because I know you think he was interfered with there.
I think it was PI, but y'all made some good points during this game that they've been letting a lot of contact go. So I guess I shouldn't be as surprised they let it go. If you want to sit there, the thing that I disagreed with what was going on in our chat is that everyone was saying that Khalif just fell down, which was not the case. He got bumped. Two ways to fix that if you're the Titans. First of all, don't target Khalif in a moment that matters like that. A small body receiver. If that was John Smith or anybody else, they're not getting knocked off with the kind of contact that he got. It was a little soft that he did get knocked down with the contact that was there. So I'm backing off my statement a little bit. But was it PI? Yes, it was PI. Am I shocked they didn't call it? No, not anymore. Just based on how they were letting things go all game, and how your first read there isn't AJ Brown.
Look, he'd been locked on AJ Brown the entire game.
Why?
I will sit here and I will totally toot my own horn because all season I have talked about their lack of ability to be. Lebowski's gone. Do we even know how to host this show?
Yeah, we can manage, but not as well though.
Inmates running the asylum.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Here he is.
I just had panic there. The Titans, though, you look at these guys. Look, we have talked good. A.J. Brown and Corey Davis is this entire 2020 season comes down to when I talk about it. The theme of it is margin for error. The defense did not get the offense a margin for error at all this season. This game, the defense stepped up. When you talk about this game, there is zero error for A.J. Brown and Corey Davis to take a day off, because when Corey Davis goes out, you go to 3 undrafted free agents. And I'm sorry, you do not need to have first rounders all around it, but if you are going to rely on those guys to win one-on-one matchups when it's Khalif Raymond, I think Cameron Batson is a better wide receiver. They should have relied on him a whole lot more. And Nick Westbrook.
Westbrook
He made more plays than I expected. But at the same time, if that is fallback plan, going from a couple of, I'll say first round, I almost said couple of first round. A.J. Brown was a second rounder, but probably should have been a first rounder. If it goes that hard of a drop off, you need a third competent player. And look, you can say that Adam Humphries, his injury impacted you, but I'm sorry, it is such a drastic drop off. You can't have more of a performance in a one-on-one matchup in a man-to-man coverage situation. That is Vince.
So if the ball was tipped, I didn't see that it was tipped, and I didn't pay too much attention to that because I was more focused on trying to see what happened. Okay.
It wasn't.
I didn't think the ball was tipped. In my mind, I couldn't go back and see because I was so focused on watching Peters and that interaction. Feet didn't get tangled up either. There was a little bit of a shoulder. Again, it wasn't major contact. And if you have a better receiver there that's a little bigger body, he doesn't get knocked down anyway.
Don't run out 125-pound wide receivers. I don't
130. Care. Anyway, so the thing is, too, is that why not? And I think I want to take credit for this comment, even though I think I just saw it out of the corner of my eye, is that the other thing I would like to have seen instead of rolling out some of those other receivers, Batson, like you said, would have been an option. But Ferkser, Jonnu Smith, line them out there, let them get out there and see what they can do, and let them run some routes. I mean, we're touting Jonnu Smith as a very athletic tight end. You can't tell me that he can't run 80% of the route tree and try to get something going, and especially if you compare him out there with Batson running underneath some stuff, or Batson running over the top and clearing for Jonnu. I think there was better options there. For sure. I agree with Johnathan.
100%.
We'll
you go with Brown.
Let's talk about 21 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to clean that up, absolutely, yeah. It's hard to go back and second guess that stuff, but I do. It's hard for me to understand when you've got 3 big targets of the gentleman you just listed, why you go Raymond there. But okay, so let me shift here. People keep posting in the chat asking about, do we know anything about Corey Davis? No. I'm going to repeat what I said 15 minutes ago. Vrabel in his presser was very typical Vrabel. He was not, quote, Davis was not able to go at the end of the game. We have no idea. I'm not going to make assumptions why, so we have no idea. But I want to ask, starting with Graver, unfortunately, it's off season now. What are the Titans' biggest fix? I know it's easy just to say defense, but like, there's a lot of pieces on defense that need fixing. There's a lot of items that need addressing. Let's start with defense.
There's 2 or 3 things.
Where do you go?
They need a defensive coordinator. That much is clear. They need somebody who has been an experienced defensive play caller with success, because Mike Vrabel came over from Houston after 1 year as defensive coordinator when his team gave up the most points of any team in the league. And Shane Bowen was with him in Houston. And those guys come over here, and Shane Bowen is apparently the play caller. I don't know if we've ever got 100% confirmation on that, but Bowen is apparently the play caller with a lot of probably oversight from Vrabel. And it was terrible. It was terrible all year. And whether that was because the scheme was too complex for players to digest and play fast, whether that's Rashaan Evans not getting downhill or Kevin Byard being a terrible player this year, which he had been one of the best players on defense for 3 years, is crazy. So you got to get somebody in there that can fix whatever happened to your good players who didn't play well this year. And then on top of that, you have to get pass rushers. You got to get guys that can beat blocks one-on-one. And Harold Landry, surprisingly, was like 7th or 8th in the NFL in pass rush win rate this year, but he couldn't finish. And one reason he couldn't finish because he didn't have any help, anybody to push the quarterback into, or anybody to push the quarterback into him. And a lot of those sacks that you see are guys who somebody else won the rep, and Harold Landry's there to clean it up, or Jeffrey Simmons, or whatever it is. And Titans didn't have enough of those opportunities this year because they didn't have enough guys that can just win one-on-one against the guy across from them.
Ryan,
you got any more points there? I'm just kidding. You hit on the 2 probably most important things, but just as far as, and I'll leave one because I know Jonathan's been claiming for one for a couple of years now, so I'm going to leave that for him because I know exactly where he's going to go. But yeah, you need to try to address edge in multiple ways in the draft and free agency. A couple of years ago, I think that we were giving praise to John Robinson because he would draft one and sign one, meaning that he would draft a need position. So he was kind of building and kind of protecting both angles there. One of them didn't work out, and they didn't really do this year. They really signed edge and didn't draft anything. And the drafts that they had been going through for edge the past couple of years hadn't worked out. So it just kind of left you with nothing after that. And that's why you've got the guys that you have in dollar store Clay Matthews out there, who again had and they were sacking Lamar all over the place in the first half. So those are good. But I think you really need to address that. And then I'll speak on this too, is that unfortunately, because when last year, I think you still have to look at corner at some point in time. You didn't shore that up. You still have to figure out what you're going to do with your first round offensive tackle. And if he's ever going to play football and get his mind right. And we could do a whole nother podcast on that for hours about the problems of Isaiah Wilson. But all said and done, it leaves you with a hole now because you draft him thinking that if he can't take over for Dennis Kelly and beat him out, he's at least going to be there and improve when Dennis Kelly runs through his contract. And now you have your right tackle to go with your left tackle in Lawan. And that was just obvious there. Now, obviously, they put some things together with some backups this year, but you don't want to be in that situation all year. It's not ideal. And you got to look maybe possibly in the draft for some interior offensive linemen as well, just because of the types of injuries you saw. Ben Jones turns 30. I know he's got a couple years left in his contract. I think he'll turn 32 or 33 at the end of his contract. I could be wrong there, but you can the offensive line as well, even though they did play good this year for the most part.
Look, this is a team that you're praying that the guys like Ben, just the guys like Roger Saffold, they don't take a step back going into next year.
Right.
When you talk about it, and you teed it up. The thing I'm going to bring up, they need speed on offense. They have these physical freaks out there, but at some point, you go get the dude that runs a 4.3, an actual guy that is not 130 pounds like a Khalif Raymond. And I think Cam Batson should have been playing, and he has been at wide receiver playing over a Khalif Raymond the entire season. But at the same time, go get a guy. He does not necessarily need to be a Tyreek Hill, which if you are drafting today is a first round pick, but you need to have that middle of the round guy that is a legitimate threat that can be your number three option, because it changes everything for your offense. When you look at it, you're talking about a guy with Derrick Henry that has a limited window. I'm not talking about the Titans. I'm not talking about Tannehill. Tannehill can play for another 10 years. He really can at the position he plays.
Running back doesn't.
Running back can't. And when you look at that, the Titans saw an element of it where a team keyed on a running back that wants to. Darrington Evans has got to get involved, and you have to find out in this offseason whether Darrington Evans is your guy to be an offensive threat out of the backfield. And if he is not, you move on quickly. Darrington Evans, I do think, is that guy, but you better be damn sure going into 2021 that he is that guy, because this offense definitely felt that element of not having that threat out of the backfield, that in the passing game. And I get it. They are a pound the football. You want to establish your identity, but Darrington Evans has got to be the guy that can take something off of Derrick Henry when he starts to feel some of that wear, which, sorry, that is just physics. That's life. He is going to take something off of it. Defensively, look, draft everybody after you get your speed wide receiver, draft every single player that plays edge. That's it. Like, get a pass rush.
Yep.
Sign and draft.
You're running out of Dory Jackson. You're running out. Yeah, like edge has got to be
number one. It's been frustrating. And you're talking about speed. I've got a request for everybody in the chat right now. And everybody's going to rewatch this on YouTube. I've got a request for you out there. Go out there, and we're starting the Jalen Waddle from Bama smear campaign as far as he can in the draft, so he can get to the Titans, because that's the speed you want.
Got into a fight.
He just got into a fight with some. Yeah, we got to come up with something. You're pretty good at photoshopping videos and stuff, right, JG? Let's put some videos out there if you're doing something, so we can get him to drop down that draft board.
Gas mask bong video.
Hey, you're good with making them funny videos with the electric box. Why don't you do some of that shit with the colors and whatnot?
Yeah,
I want to address something with Ryan, just because I know we're going to spend some offseason shitting all over this topic, but I'm going to clear up the Isaiah Wilson topic for you right now. Dude's a fucking loser, and he's out. He's not playing for the Titans.
I understand that, but yeah, they're not going to just. I would love it.
Here's how you address it. We're going to come get some of your money back.
Yeah,
so
I would love it if they did that, but I don't think they will. I hope they do, because that'd be awesome.
So here's kind of my a few takeaways is that ultimately,
So
this
guys-
is why I was speaking about that Titans fans need to prepare themselves for a one and done. You can't have an offseason that the Titans have and expect it not to catch up with you. Losing Wilson, Vic Beasley, and Clowney and striking out on all three was absolutely bound to doom you, and it doomed the Titans. I will just go ahead and say that. No depth on the O-line. Wilson contributed to that. Vic Beasley and Clowney ended up being complete busts for the Titans. Those
I like great either. So
those two items hurt badly. So ultimately, I'm going to go with Graver's comment of it has to start with the Titans have to get a defensive coordinator, and that defensive coordinator cannot be named Shane Bowen. We need to look outside the organization. Let's start fresh. And then the Titans have got to address pass rush in the offseason. Wilson's out. Do what you got to do there. But the Titans have multiple items that they have to address, and they're going to have to start there. Missing all those pieces, that really, really hurt the Titans, and they just ultimately couldn't overcome it.
Yeah, you can't not get better in the offseason. I think the Titans didn't get better. They continued exactly as dominant, and people expected regression, and they didn't regress on offense. The offense put up 40 points how many times this year? 5 or 6, something crazy like that. One of the best offenses in franchise history. But it was pretty much as good and the same as it was once Ryan Tannehill took over week 10, week 7, whatever last year. So I think that you have to get better in the offseason. How hot is John Robinson's seat? Ice cold. John Robinson has no heat on his seat.
I'm glad you're addressing some of these comments, because I was like, I hope we're not wrapping up. I want to address a couple of these comments here. And yes, Robinson is coming off the year before, which is probably one of the best drafts. You saw what the value he got and how those guys are producing right now. The draft 2 years ago, the AJ Brown draft, there was a masterful draft. And then, yes, he laid an egg this last year, but they made some signings they thought would work out. Sometimes those things happen. It just sucks that it all happened in the same year. You're hoping at least some things pop. Hitting 50%, you're having a good year. It just sucks that it seems like it's closer to 0% this year. So it's easy to have that. So his seat should be cold. And I actually agree with King Carnage here, Lebowski. The depth of the O-line actually turned out to be okay with Brewer, with the 2 tackles. The depth was okay this year, unexpected depth. And I think and just to kind of back up what Lebowski's trying to say here, is that you can't rely on those guys, because looking at it, there's not a person in this chat that can tell me they thought they saw the names that were backing up our offensive line and said, if we've got to rely on them, we're going to have a good season. It's a surprise they did, and it's a welcome surprise, and I'm glad they did it. I think that's a testament to Keith Carter and the job he did this year. A couple of years removed after people were not real happy with the job he was doing, or at least some grumblings last year. So he did a really good job there with those guys stepping up, and I really liked what I saw of Aaron Brewer, and hope that, with your 2 guards that you had in the interior, this offensive line is definitely the strength this year. It just sucks that Aaron Brewer can't get some more play time, because I really liked what I saw out of him in limited play this year.
Yeah, and fair enough.
So
that's not what I'm saying, King Carnage.
Nope, I got it. So because we don't know their name, they're bad. No, because you didn't know at the season does not necessarily mean that they are bad. He was able to coach them up and get actual performance out of guys that were unknowns going into the season. But the only thing I'll say going into 2021 is of the guys that were majorly injured, the only one that you can actually expect anything out of is Taylor Lewan. You look at the Jayon Browns. You look at the I missed one.
Clowney.
Who was the one that got
Clowney?
That's it. They're gone. And they may sign one, if not both of them, but you can count on moving forward Taylor Lewan. And so I think you have to figure out, what is this team moving forward? Because I'm sorry, if you're building a team around Derrick Henry, and I love Derrick Henry, I love the way he runs the ball. I think he's made a change in the way that he runs the ball. 2 years ago, we talked about it. I have some comments about if you're motivated by a conversation with Eddie George, but at the same time, look, if you're building around a running back in 2021, I think that is a recipe for disaster. So you got to figure it out.
Well, gentlemen, this is going to bring us to the end of the road, and I really hate that it's ending today, but unfortunately it is. It's been a good season with the Sunday Night Roundtable. I do want to thank all of our listeners who have chimed in and commented. This has been a lot of fun this year. Really appreciate you all jumping in.
One last question.
Take it.
A complete overhaul, I'm guessing, is what the typo is here. Do you see a complete overhaul for the defense side this offseason? I think there will be more or less an overhaul. I don't know if it'll be a complete overhaul. They're going to have new starting inside linebackers, probably, at least one, maybe two. And they're probably going to have a defensive coordinator. And the big thing for me is if you can get someone like a Keith Carter on the O-line to lead your defense, who's coaching up these depth guys we've never heard of to play at a high level. If you can get someone like that as you're on the defensive side of the ball and coach up guys to play above their skill set instead of wherever Kevin Byard and Adoree Jackson did today. And Adoree Jackson was not good today. I know you said he wasn't that bad, but there were a lot of times where Adoree was just not there, not making the tackle he needed to be making. And I mean, he's probably not back yet. I mean, he's only played 3 games. So the point is, I don't know if it'll be an overhaul, but it will be changes. I mean, there needs to be sweeping changes because they need to send a message to the team that performance through the regular season is not the kind of level that this team expects to have going forward.
Yes, we will have hockey coverage, and we have that.
Yeah. Yes, we will. I mean, COVID screwed up everything. We launched this company and this group in the middle of a pandemic right at the beginning of it. So our original plans for multiple items got thrown into the fray. But yes, long story short, we will have hockey coverage. And obviously we look forward to putting our hearts and souls into the content you've already seen as we move into the off season. Hockey, you name it, we're definitely going to be all over it. But this is it for Sunday Night Roundtable for the season. We hate that we are leaving it on this note, but don't worry, we got plenty of all-season content for you. We will be here to shit all over Ryan's comments about Isaiah Wilson and drag him through the ringer for multiple episodes. I'm kidding, I'm just giving him hell. But thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate all the comments, questions, following, and interacting with us. It's been enjoyable. Have a good off-season. We will see you at the beginning of next season with Sunday Night Roundtable. And until then, have a good day.
OH! Ha ha!